How confident are you that you arrested the right person?
I am very confident. So.
We will do whatever it takes to make sure Lisa is taken care of. And for us, this is making sure that Lisa's taken care of.
I was Mr. Nice Guy for a long time. It done me no good. People took advantage of me, so I'm kind of taking a different approach to life right now, being more serious and more not such a nice guy.
Saturday, May 26, 2012. At 4:30 a.m., a phone alarm rang inside a quiet trailer tucked just outside the small town of Agency. Seth Techel rolled out of bed. He was 23, newly married, working security nights, chasing a future in law enforcement. That morning his plan was simple: shower, coffee, start the day. Beside him, Lisa was still. 5 months pregnant, exhausted from her job as a county corrections officer. She asked to sleep in. Her shift at Washington County Jail wouldn't start until 6. Seth let her rest. He stepped into the bathroom, and that's when it began. A strange sound echoed from the other room, quick, sharp, out of place. He checked the living room. Nothing. No sign of anyone. But minutes later, as steam filled the air, a second sound rang out. Seth ran soaking wet into the bedroom. The dog was cowering in the closet. Lisa lay motionless in bed. There was a hole in the blanket, a hole in her chest. He called out to her. No response, no breath. He grabbed his handgun, searched the house. The front door was wide open, but there was no intruder, no footsteps, no trail, just silence. And that was the moment this town's peace cracked in half. A young woman gone, an unborn child lost, and a young couple on the edge of everything they ever wanted. Something happened behind that door, but the truth didn't come easy.
Okay, 911, speaking.
She's my baby.
Does she have any medical problems?
She's been shot. I was in a shot to get ready for work and I heard a gunshot. And I came running out and she shot in the side and
The call came in just before dawn. A dispatcher's voice crackled through the radio. A woman down. The address, a quiet trailer in Agency, Iowa. Martin Wunderlin was the only officer on duty. He'd just finished his final sweep of the county. A few minutes more and he would have been home asleep. But that night wasn't over. Not even close. Agency wasn't a place where darkness ever stayed long. A small rural town with barely 1,000 people. A place where crime meant a busted taillight or a bar fight that ended in handshakes. But this wasn't a noise complaint. This was Lisa Marie Techel, a local jail officer, a daughter, a friend, and the child of one of their own, Deputy Todd Caldwell. Martin Wunderlin hit the gas. When he arrived, Seth Techel was already outside, pacing, shouting, eyes wide with panic. He wasn't crying, but his rage came in waves. Something didn't sit right with Wunderlin. Still, he reminded himself, this was new ground. His first response to a possible homicide. People grieve in all kinds of ways. An ambulance was called. Crime scene investigators alerted. But one task loomed above everything else. Someone had to tell Todd. 30 minutes later, the deputy sheriff was standing outside his daughter's home. Beside him stood his wife and Lisa's closest friend. Inside the house, Seth tried to explain what happened. Officers asked questions, took notes. But Todd didn't wait for facts. He didn't ask for reports or evidence. He pointed down the road. His voice cut through the crowd.
Go get him. Go get him. Now.
To Todd Caldwell, there was no mystery, no hesitation. He believed he already knew who was responsible for his daughter's death. The man next door. Brian Tate. But was that gut instinct or something more? When Deputy Todd Caldwell shouted that name on the scene, no one looked surprised. Not one officer asked him to explain. They already knew exactly why he accused Brian Tate. He wasn't just the Techel's neighbor. He was a walking warning. Officers in the department had received internal briefings. Rule 1, never approach him alone. But for the crime scene investigators that morning, his name was still a curveball. Why would Lisa's father point the finger at someone before the questions even began? And why did none of the cops on site challenge it? The answers didn't need chasing. They were already standing in that yard, because everyone there already knew who Brian Tate was, and more importantly, what he had been through with the Techel family. Brian was in his mid-50s, a troubled man living with his mother, diagnosed with a serious mental condition that left him paranoid and volatile. He believed the government was after him. And in his world, the Techels were enemies. He told police once that they were dangerous people. He used words like invaders, terrorists, and it hadn't come out of nowhere. The bad blood started over something strange. Seth found a deer carcass by the road one night and dragged it off to the ditch. Days later, Lisa spotted the animal's hide hanging from a tree on Brian's property. Then it ended up in their burn barrel. The hide started to go back and forth like a warning, a twisted message between two homes, but it didn't end there. Seth told a few younger friends to mess with the neighbor's property. What started as a prank turned into vandalism. Buckets of animal waste dumped across Brian's lawn, rocks hurled at his shed. Brian called the police again and again. One day, the deputy assigned to talk him down was Todd Caldwell himself. But Brian didn't know he was speaking to Lisa's father. He told Todd straight out. The Techels were tormenting him. That he was armed. That he didn't feel safe. And he was always on guard. The stories got darker in the days leading up to the tragedy. Seth noticed footprints near the fence one morning. Then their dog Remington got sick after drinking from a dish left outside. He suspected poison, but it turned out the dog had drunk dirty water from a ditch. Officers didn't shrug it off. They flagged Brian as a potential danger. Officially. A department-wide notice went out. Do not approach this man alone. The powder was there. The fuse had been lit. The question now wasn't just who Brian Tate was. It was what he was willing to do. The investigators had a choice. Storm the neighbor's house like Deputy Todd Caldwell demanded, or slow it down and do it by the book. For now, they held back. No immediate arrest for Brian Tate. There was no evidence. Just an angry father, a history of neighbor disputes, and a shotgun blast that changed everything. Inside the Techel trailer, things didn't add up. No broken windows, no busted door, nothing forced. Seth told them he forgot to lock up before taking his shower. So yes, someone could have walked in, but what they found only raised more questions. The bathroom was still wet. The tiles, the faucet, the floor, which supported Seth's timeline. He said he'd been in the shower when he heard the blast. But the towel, that was a problem. It was soaked. Not damp. Drenched. Not like someone had used it. More like it had been dunked. And that didn't match the story. If Seth really heard the shot mid-shower and ran out within seconds, how did his towel get that wet? Unless he took time to soak it, or unless he hadn't actually been in the shower at all. Then there was the morning dew. This was small town, the kind of place where 4:30 a.m. meant fog thick enough to hold footprints. But outside the trailer there were none. No impressions in the grass, no trail from a fleeing intruder. No sign anyone had come or gone. Still, the investigators found something. 2 cigarette butts discarded behind the trailer, just a few feet from the garage door. It was sent for DNA. No one in the house smoked, so who left them? And why were they outside but not inside? If the shooter had been out there, why leave no other trace? Why not a fingerprint, a shoe print, a single hair? And most importantly, if the shot went off and Seth ran from the bathroom in under 30 seconds, where were the shell casings? None were found in the bedroom. No ejected round. No slug. The scene was raising more doubts than answers. So the department split up. One team would reach out to Lisa's circle friends, colleagues, most of them in law enforcement, most of them willing to talk. Another unit prepared to bring in Brian Tate for questioning. But the most delicate task, the one that could shatter or shape the entire case, was assigned to the third team. They would sit down with Seth Techel, because inside that trailer were questions no one else could answer. and only one man claimed to be there when the shot was fired. With the home sealed off and evidence collected, investigators left the scene with Seth Techel in the back of a cruiser. He wasn't under arrest, but he had questions to answer, and the clock was ticking. While one team sat down with Seth, another from Wapello County was gearing up for something entirely different. They were heading to the home of Brian Tate, and they weren't expecting a conversation. They were preparing for a confrontation. Brian was known for one thing: paranoia with a trigger. He rarely went anywhere without his weapon, always loaded, always close. Officers knew this wouldn't be simple. They suited up, reviewed protocol, because walking up to Brian Tate's porch could mean walking into chaos. But then something happened no one expected. They got there, and everything they were bracing for, everything they thought they knew, was wrong. He greeted them with a smile, he and his mother, and calmly asked them to sit with him in front of the house. The conversation began.
I went to bed about 8:30.
Right after I did.
After Mom did.
Did you hear anything in the middle of the night last night?
I was in bed, and normally I would have been up doing guard duty with all this that happened, but I'm schizophrenic paranoid.
You said earlier, Brian, that you'd sit outside here
At night?
at night. Yeah. When's the last time you did that?
Oh, it's been a good week or so.
So?
They don't want me to do guard duty anymore. They want me to get sleep, take more medications.
You were such a calm, quiet guy until this vandalism started, and then you're just like a different person.
I was Mr. Nice Guy for a long time. It done me no good. People took advantage of me, so I'm kind of taking a different approach to life right now, being more serious and more not such a nice guy.
Brian Tate explained he had recently increased his medication, said it helped him sleep. His mother backed him up without hesitation. She told officers Brian had been home all night, sound asleep. His doctor confirmed it. Yes, the dosage was higher. Yes, it would absolutely keep someone like Brian under for hours. And then came the neighbors. They hadn't seen Brian on his porch in over a week. No pacing, no patrolling, no muttering under his breath like before. Whatever fire had been burning inside him was gone. The officers who'd once seen him as a threat now crossed his name off the list. Brian Tate wasn't their guy. But across town, a very different conversation was unfolding. Seth Techel had now been in the interview room for over 3 hours. The first half of that time had been warm, even sympathetic. Investigators approached him as a husband, a grieving man, not just a possible suspect. They knew him. He wasn't a stranger. He was one of their own. But something was coming. Because somewhere around the midpoint of that interview, everything would change. And when it did, so would the entire course of the investigation. What happened in that room would mark the beginning of the unraveling.
I turned the shower on. I wasn't in there for more than 5 minutes, and I heard this loud noise. And I will be honest, I had every intention on shooting whoever it was. I don't see anybody. I don't hear nothing. I run back inside. I run into the bedroom. And I said, Lisa, are you okay? And she's not breathing. Protected, I was 10 feet away from her. And why can't they still be alive? Why? Why couldn't I have done something to protect the woman that I love? Who was the first person that came for your life? Tate, my crazy-ass neighbor who thinks that we're terrorists. Todd said that Tate the whole time was sitting on his front porch and he was rubbing a loaded shotgun.
The interview was still following one track. Seth Techel sat across from investigators pointing the blame at Brian Tate, the troubled neighbor, the easy answer. What Seth didn't know was that outside that room, everything was about to shift. A new piece of information had just landed on an investigator's desk, one that no one in that room had heard yet. A close friend of both Seth and Lisa had stepped forward and told them Lisa had recently found out something big. Seth had been secretly talking to another woman. Lisa had confronted him. She threatened to leave. Seth begged her to stay, promised it was over. But it wasn't. Because what Seth didn't tell Lisa was that he had bought a second phone, set up a fake name, created a new email and kept the connection alive. The affair never ended. It just went underground. The moment investigators heard that the air in the room changed, the tone, the posture, the silence between questions, and Seth felt it. He looked across the table, and for the first time, the eyes staring back at him weren't full of sympathy, but as something else entirely.
I know I'm obviously probably number one right now. Let's talk about people that are in your life and others' lives. Was there any extramarital affairs going on?
Seth denied everything. No affair, no other woman, no secret phone, nothing. To investigators, it wasn't just a lie, it was a red flag. So they asked him for something simple, a test. Just a swab of his hands to check for gunpowder residue. Seth agreed. But the test never happened. Because just minutes later his lawyer walked into the room, hired by Seth's father. From that moment forward, no residue test, no more casual questions, and no more voluntary anything. What began as a conversation had now become a battle. In the first 24 hours, detectives thought they'd seen it all. The unstable neighbor, off the list, the grieving husband, now suspect number one, and a mystery woman, suddenly part of the picture. But nothing could prepare them for what came next. The following morning, an officer assigned to canvass the area spotted something in the grass about 90 feet from the Techel home tucked near the tree line behind the garage. A shotgun. Mossberg 500, 12 gauge, resting beside an ejected shell. It hadn't been there the day before, not visibly. And the questions exploded. Who owned the gun? Why was it suddenly in the open? And was it the weapon that ended Lisa Techel's life? Investigators traced the serial number. It belonged to Lucas Howell Seth's former roommate. He'd moved out recently for health reasons and left the shotgun behind, which meant it had been inside the home the entire time. But Seth never mentioned it. Not when asked to list his weapons. Not once. Now with the gun out in the open, it looked like someone was trying to plant a story to shift the narrative to push blame in a new direction. The setup was clear. A stranger sneaks into the garage, grabs the shotgun, fires the shot, then ditches the weapon on his way out. It was convenient. Too convenient. Detectives weren't buying it. And they knew they needed answers from the one person who could blow the whole story apart. Rachel McFarland. The woman Seth never stopped talking to, even when his wife found out. If she confirmed what others had only guessed, the case wouldn't just move forward, it would ignite.
He added me on Facebook and asked for my telephone number, and just text messages from there started becoming more than just coworkers. It went from just normal conversations to flirtatious text messages. It became more sexual, asking me to send pictures or, I don't know, just showing off my body, I guess. And he started asking if, when he got a divorce from his wife, if I'd move in with him.
The story Rachel McFarland told changed everything. Her connection with Seth Techel didn't start with late-night texts or quick glances at work. It began back in late 2011, when the two worked security together at Job Corps. At first it was innocent, a few Facebook messages. But that didn't last. The conversation turned personal, then intimate, then explicit. Within weeks, they were sending each other photos, flirting openly, imagining a life beyond what they had. There was just one problem. Seth was already married. Still, that didn't slow them down. Their messages only got bolder, their plans more serious. By early 2012, Lisa had caught on. She found the messages, the photos, the tone, the truth. She confronted her husband. Seth promised it was over, but it wasn't. On May 20th, he messaged her, "Just give me 2 more weeks." She asked what he meant. He said it again, "Just 2 more weeks." Then, on May 24th, she told him she loved him, asked if he felt the same. He answered with one word: forever. On May 25th, the day before the gunshot, he was still texting her, still making promises, still talking about leaving Lisa. Rachel was excited. She believed him. By now, the picture was clear. A husband entangled in a hidden relationship. Secret messages. A secret phone and a shotgun he never mentioned. The very one that ended his wife's life. Everything pointed to one man, Seth Techel. On May 30th, 2012, just hours after the funeral for Lisa Techel. As mourners hugged, cried, and tried to make sense of the loss, detectives moved in. Seth was arrested in Ottumwa right in the middle of his wife's memorial. It felt like the air got sucked out of the room. Friends, family, officers who once called him brother-in-law, now watched in stunned silence as he was cuffed and led away. 2 charges were filed that day: first-degree murder and unlawful termination of a pregnancy. Cash bond was set at $750,000, and Seth Techel was transferred to Monroe County Jail. The man who once stood next to Lisa in uniform was now behind bars, accused of taking everything from her in the one place she was supposed to feel safe. But even with the arrest, this case was just beginning to unravel.
Techel has been charged with murder in the first degree and non-consensual termination of a human pregnancy, which is a Class B felony and carries a penalty of 25 years. Of course, murder in the first degree, a Class A felony with a maximum penalty of life in prison.
How confident are you that you arrested the right person?
I am very confident.
The arrest of Seth Techel stunned everyone, but it didn't stop the investigation. Detectives weren't finished. They wanted every thread, every secret. 4 days after Seth was taken into custody, an officer sat down with one last piece of evidence, Lisa Techel's phone. It was recovered from beside her bed the morning she was found. It had been locked, but after a few attempts, the screen finally lit up, and what it revealed changed the story again. Inside Lisa's phone, detectives discovered messages to another man, a co-worker, Jason Tennyson. He worked with her at Washington County Jail, and their connection had gone far beyond professional. According to Jason, their relationship started before Lisa ever married Seth, and continued long after she said, "I do." It began with flirtation, quiet meetings, but it didn't stay quiet. It turned physical. Even as she planned a life with Seth, Lisa was living another one in secret. Jason admitted it, eventually. At first he lied to police, said there was nothing between them, tried to protect his own wife. Tried to hide from what he knew would come out. But under pressure, he told the truth. Lisa and Jason had talked even about the baby. Jason wondered if the child might be his, but based on the timeline, he said he was certain it wasn't. By then, their affair had ended. Still, that kind of secret raised new questions. Could jealousy have played a role? Had someone else found out? Was Jason's alibi real? Or just well-rehearsed? His wife Elizabeth testified that Jason was home with her the night Lisa was killed. Jason Tennyson had nothing to do with Lisa's death. That much the investigators confirmed. But what they didn't do would come back to haunt them. Lisa's phone, the one that revealed her secret affair, was never sent to the lab, never properly examined, never added to the official list of evidence. And when the courtroom battle began, that silence would become a crack in the case. The first trial started in February 2013, in the same city where Seth and Lisa once lived, Ottumwa. The prosecution laid out their case clearly. They showed messages, call logs, photos, a double life with Rachel McFarland, and a motive built on lust and escape. But the defense pushed back, pointing the finger at Brian Tate, the mentally unstable neighbor with a grudge and a gun close by. 3 weeks of testimony, 4 days of jury deliberation, and the verdict never came, a deadlock. 10 for guilty, 2 for not. The second trial moved to Mount Pleasant, a different city to escape the media storm. Same evidence, same arguments, same ending. This time the jury split 9-3, then came the third round. Before it could even begin, Seth's defense attorney stepped down. Health issues, financial strain. 2 trials had taken their toll. A new team was assigned, and just days before court resumed, They uncovered something that had never been admitted in trial. Lisa's affair with Jason Tennyson. They asked for time. The court said no. On July 14th, 2014, the third trial began. Same story, same facts, but this time, one thing had changed. The jury, after weeks of testimony and years of uncertainty, they deliberated for just 45 minutes. The verdict: guilty. Seth Techel was convicted on both counts, first-degree murder and the unlawful ending of a pregnancy. On September 11th, 2014, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole plus 25 additional years. His legal team appealed, arguing the court never gave them enough time. That evidence had been withheld, that key facts had been buried, but it didn't matter. In 2016, Iowa's Supreme Court refused to review the case. It was over. The final chapter wasn't clean, but it was closed.
But he is a coward. Seth never talked to me after he killed Lisa, but he talked to my wife. He told her that he looked into Lisa's eyes as she moaned and took her last breath. I have nightmares about that, Seth. And in my nightmares, I always wake up wondering if Lisa was thinking, I need my dad.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more true crime documentaries. See you in the next video.